Hey everyone, I am back talking about another issue related to kidding season. And this is also answering a very common question that I get this time of year. If you missed yesterday's video, be sure to watch it. It is about the one thing you should absolutely never, ever, ever do during a goat birth with a newborn kid. And that is mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And I explain why in that video. So today I'm going to respond to another question that I get a lot this time of year. And that is that if my goat had trouble kidding last year, is she going to have trouble again this year? Should I be worried? Should I be concerned? Is there anything I need to do? And the answer is that goats should not have, you should not have a goat and be breeding a goat that has chronic kidding problems. That is a losing proposition for everybody. So if a goat had a kid that was malpositioned, like it was trying to come out ribs first or ears first or something like that, that was not physically possible, and you had to reach in and rearrange the kid and get it into a correct position, that is really just bad luck. I know on social media, there are people who say there are supplements that prevent weird positions, but that is absolutely not true. It's really a pretty crazy idea, actually. So most kids do a great job of getting themselves into that perfect little diving position, even if they are butt first or hind legs first. Those are doable. The only hind legs first is just as easy as nose and front feet. Butt first can be challenging if a kid is big in comparison to the mom's pelvis. I have a lot of goats that have pelvises so big you could drive a Mack truck through. So they give birth to butt first breeches with no problems. This is another reason I'm not a huge fan of like little bitty goats. You know, I want my Nigerians to be a decent size. I'm not looking for like teacup goats or whatever, because those don't make good milk goats either. They're too short to be able to get a milk bucket under them. So anyway, so weird positions are is luck of the draw. Like there is no reason why, if a goat had a kid last year that was in an odd position, there's no reason that would happen again. Other stuff, I mean, you know, like if your goat did have some kind of a deficiency, like a calcium deficiency or something like that, and wound up having problems because she had hypocalcemia or whatever, I really hope that you have educated yourself about that issue and increased her calcium this time, and that you are now feeding her alfalfa at the end of her pregnancy, because goats do need at least 50% of their hay should be alfalfa or another legume like clover, Sericea lespedeza, peanut hay. Alfalfa and clover are the two highest in terms of like protein and calcium. So those are really good ones. So that's what goats need at the end of pregnancy. But your goats should not have any trouble giving birth just because they had something weird last year. And pretty much almost always the reason that a goat is having trouble is because the kid is in a weird position. So again, that's just bad luck. I have a 2 strikes rule that if a goat has trouble giving birth more than twice, she is retired. And we're up to 750 kids now. I have only ever had 3 goats that had trouble twice. It was a mother and a daughter. And so you see, like that mom should not have continued to be bred, right? So the mom and the daughter both got retired after 2 kiddings. And then the third goat, unfortunately, I did not stick with my 2 strikes rule, and I actually bred her again, and I wound up having to pay for a C-section as a result. And I kicked myself the whole 2-hour drive to the vet hospital because it's like, you should not have bred this goat again. You knew you should not have bred this goat again. And the reason is because she was a very small goat. She was too small. This was fairly early in my kidding years, like 10 years or less. I know 10 years might sound like a lot to some people, but after 22 years, 10 years is like, oh yeah, I was still pretty inexperienced at that point. This goat, her growth was stunted because she had a bad case of parasites as a kid. And she was not an itty bitty tiny goat. When you looked at her out in the pasture with the other goats, she looked pretty normal. But she obviously had genetics for bigger babies because she was not a goat that could give birth to babies that were not in just the perfect, nose and two hooves, because her pelvis was too small and she was growing big babies because that's the genetics she had. She had the genetics to have normal sized babies, even though she was a little bit on the smaller side. And so, anyway, it, in fact, the last time she kidded, like I pulled so hard to get that kid out while she was pushing that I fell back on the straw when the kid came out. And that's the only time in my life I have ever been in that situation. And I am laying on the straw, staring at the ceiling of the barn, screamed, "You're retired." And then when fall came, I didn't stick to it and I bred her again. So my own stupid fault for breeding her again. Why? Because she honestly had the best teats I have ever seen on any Nigerian dwarf goat ever in 22 years still. None of her daughters even got her wonderful teats. But she had very long teats with big orifices and a buttery soft udder. I mean, it's like the trifecta of mammaries. And I really, really wanted more mammaries like that in my herd. And it didn't happen. So anyway, the other thing too to keep in mind is that if you are new to goats and you don't have a lot of experience with kidding, like if you've had less than 50 kiddings, you might be panicking a little early and thinking that you need to help when you don't. I'll never forget the person who said to me years ago, like, "What is wrong with my goats? I have 6 does and I had to help 5 of them. The only one I didn't have to help was the one who gave birth in the pasture when I was gone." Well, do you see the pattern there? And when I asked her to explain like what was up, with the goats that she thought she had to help, the reality is she didn't really need to help. Like, though she was intervening way too fast. They did not need her assistance. So anyway, I go into all this stuff so much more in all of my in my kidding course, and even in my free course on getting ready for kidding season, to help you. The biggest mistake I see with so many people who are new is thinking their goat is in labor when she really isn't. So people will think their goat's in labor for 2 or 3 days before she actually kids. And that's because they're thinking like every little twitch and every time she scratches and all that kind of stuff that she's in labor. And that's not, at the very end of pregnancy, a lot of these does are very uncomfortable because they've got a lot of big kids in them and they are standing up, laying down, pawing at the ground, trying to get comfortable. And people think that means that they're in labor. And so it's really important to know like what the signs are of labor, and so that you don't get worried needlessly. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to post in the comment section below and we'll get back to you. I will be doing another stream tomorrow on another issue related to kidding season. Bye for now.